My manipulative sister poisoned my family against me, forcing me to escape and watch their lives crumble without me. I was adopted at 5 years old and my new family already had 3 daughters, Alicia, Maria, and Juliet. At first, they treated me like one of their own, and for a fleeting moment, I thought I'd finally found a home. But then Alicia, the oldest, decided I was an outsider. She was the queen bee of the house, and her first decree was that I didn't deserve a place in the family. Alicia told Maria and Juliet that our parents loved me more because I was a boy. That wasn't just a lie, it was laughable. But the damage was done. They all started treating me differently. Alicia threw a fit when my parents gave me a room on their floor, claiming it wasn't fair. Instead of standing up for me, my parents caved. They moved me into the basement. At first, I tried to convince myself it wasn't so bad. It's just a room, I thought. But it wasn't just a room, a signal that I didn't matter. The girls started calling me cellar rat. They'd laugh, saying, "Careful, he might bite." I brushed it off, thinking, this is what siblings do, right? But the jokes turned into something darker. By age 13, my parents had all but forgotten about me. They stopped attending my school events. They didn't even know my birthday, let alone celebrate it. I remember one Christmas when everyone opened presents, and I sat there empty-handed. When I asked why, my mom shrugged and said, "We didn't know what you'd want." It wasn't just the neglect. It was the little things, too, like how they'd finish dinner without calling me to join them. I'd come upstairs to find the plates cleared, hoping there were leftovers. Most nights, there weren't. It was like I didn't exist. At 17, I finally reached my breaking point. I couldn't keep living like this, like I was invisible. So, I made a plan. That night, I packed everything I could carry, a few clothes, my documents, some cash I'd saved up from odd jobs. I left a letter on my bed. Not that I thought anyone would bother reading it. By 3 a.m., I was at my best friend Jake's doorstep. He lived in a neighboring city and had agreed to let me crash at his place. When he opened the door, I could barely speak. "I'm done," I managed to say. He didn't ask questions. He just handed me a blanket and pointed to the guest room. For the first time in years, I felt safe. Update 1. The next morning, the doorbell rang. Jake opened the door, and I heard a voice I never expected to hear, Maria's. I froze. Why was she here? Jake whispered, "Want me to lie?" I shook my head. I needed to know what she wanted. Maria looked different. She wasn't the smug, aloof sister I remembered. She held my letter and said, "Thank God I found you." Then she hugged me. I stood there, stunned. She explained that the family hadn't noticed I was gone yet. She'd found my letter while everyone else was out and decided to look for me. She admitted that Alicia had manipulated her for years, filling her head with lies about me. "She told us you hated us," Maria said. "She made it seem like you wanted to be left alone." Her voice cracked as she apologized. She confessed that she'd only protested against me having a room upstairs because of Alicia's influence. "I didn't know how bad it was," she said. I never thought about it." Hearing her say that hurt more than I expected. I told her, "You didn't think about it because you didn't have to. You weren't the one being ignored." Maria nodded, tears in her eyes. "You're right. I'm sorry, but I want to make it right. Let me help you." She gave me 4 options. Go back with her to confront our parents. Take time to think, while she kept my location a secret. Refuse to return, and she'd tell them about the letter without revealing where I was. Stay away entirely, and she'd pretend she didn't know anything. I chose the second option. Maria handed me her number and promised to support me no matter what. For the first time in years, I felt like someone in that house cared. Update 2. It didn't take long for the family to notice I was gone. My parents cornered Maria, demanding answers. When she refused to tell them, they grounded her. Yes, a grown woman, grounded. Meanwhile, Alicia wasted no time spinning her web of lies. She told everyone that my disappearance was proof I was unstable. Juliet believed her, of course. Maria told me she'd overheard Alicia badmouthing her, calling her an accomplice to a runaway. Maria had had enough. When I asked if she'd consider leaving the house, she hesitated. "I don't know," she said. "I'd need to find a job first." I reminded her that she was 21 and could make her own choices. "You don't have to stay in that toxic house," I said. "If you want out, Jake and I will help you." Jake wasn't thrilled about the idea of another house guest, but he agreed on one condition. Maria had to find work. I relayed the message, and she seemed relieved. "I'll think about it," she said. A few days later, Maria called me. She'd overheard Alicia mocking her to their parents, calling her weak and useless. That was the final straw. Maria decided she was done living under Alicia's thumb. She's looking for jobs now, and once she's ready, we'll figure out the next steps together. As for me, I've started to build a life of my own. It's not perfect, but it's mine. And for the first time, I feel like I have a future worth fighting for.